My name is Thomas Carl Buscher. I was born in Gilmore City on May 9th of 1936, and we lived in Gilmore till I was 5 years old. Then we moved to Algona, Iowa. Dad had bought a farm right west of Algona. We moved there in 41, I believe it was. And there's where I lived the rest of my life until I got married. Anyway, we had a large family, and it ended up there were 13 of us in the family, and everybody was born in Gilmore City except Larry. He was born in Algona, Iowa. And my folks, I think Mom was 19 when they got married, and she always wanted a large family. She said she wanted a baker's dozen. Well, she ended up with a baker's dozen. And Dad, he was a good hard worker and just a gentleman. And they went through the Depression shortly before they moved. And he went to the bank to get some money out so they have to buy groceries. He got to the bank and the bank was closed. So all he had is some change in his pocket. But the groceryman would borrow him the money because he was good for it before all the time. Then after that, I don't remember if the oldest one went to service before we moved. Then we moved to Algona in 41, where Dad had bought a farm. And the older boys found a job where they could, working for other farmers before they went to service. And Jack, I know, worked for a neighbor not too far away for quite a while. I don't remember where Ray worked. But then we started farming there in 41. And back then we raised oats, beans, and corn, hay, and even some flax for a little while, which was kind of rare nowadays. And we raised cattle, pigs, and chickens. Milked our own cows, sold the milk, and churned our own butter. Of course, we gathered eggs, and raised chickens to butcher for meat, and we butchered the hogs ourselves at home. The cows had to send to town; they're too big to. And Larry was born in Algona. He was the only one born in Algona. I think he was born in a hospital. The rest of us was all born at home. The oldest one was Ray, and Jack, Catherine, Bob, Jeanette, Gib, Jim, Dick. And we did have one between Dick and myself with Donnie, but he drowned it in the horse tank. Then there's myself, Joe, and Ron, Mary Jo, and Larry. Parents' name was Joe and Marie Buscher. And they was good to us. We had to work. They raised a big garden, and Mom did a lot of cooking. When the thrashers were there, when they thrashed oats, she'd have them all in, and usually she made fried chicken and baked fresh bread and pies. That was normal back in them days. Seemed like every day they'd bake bread or pies. And Dad was a hard worker. He always found jobs for us. to do, kept us busy. And he liked to have nice stuff around too, good, but whatever he had, he made work. If he needed improvements on it, he did it himself. I know on one combine, he did something on it so you actually could pull the wagon along with the combine, and that was before. Every time you got a load, you had to pull up to a wagon and dump. And wasn't long the combines come out that way, so this was back when there was a pull type combine. Back then we didn't have buses to haul us to school. Dad or mom or older brothers always had to haul us to school, or the one that was in high school would take us, drive. But there's always a car full, 4 or 5 of us in the car. And back then in the school, there was all nuns for teachers. So some of them were pretty strict. You had to toe the line pretty good, otherwise they'd crack you on the knuckles with the ruler. And I don't remember a whole lot about my first couple years in school, but we never had kindergarten, I know. We started out at first grade, and back then there was quite a few of the kids come from country schools in second and third grade. That was kind of different, but. And I know we had a little candy store on the second floor of the school, or recess or noon hour, you could go up to the candy store and buy. Back then everything was about a penny, so you could buy yourself a little snack if you wanted to. And we had recess where we'd usually play marbles or something like that outside, or little football, touch football. But the playground was mostly dirt and gravel. It wasn't a nice sodded field. But yeah, they made us go outside. Even in the winter, you had to go out and get your exercise and play and whatever. That went on, well, until we got in 8th grade. I didn't remember a whole lot more about. I know we had to help and put on plays and different things like that. They wanted you to sing, but I wasn't no singer, so I didn't do that. Yeah, when I started in high school, we always had more chores to do before school. Yeah, we had to sometimes milk the cows before, so that meant we had to get up earlier in the morning, milk the cows and feed. Of course, you had to feed the cows, and Dad usually took care of feeding the hogs. And Mom would usually have a big breakfast for us when we come in for after we got chores done, but then we had to get washed up and get ready for school after we got the chores done. Sometimes we just soon stayed home and do chores, just go to school, but we had to do it anyway. Then in school, the first few years, the older brothers drove and hauled us all in. Then later it got to be my turn to drive, to haul them all in. I think there was 5 of us in the car when I was driving. And the first time, we drove around the farm a lot, messed around with the car, but I wasn't used to ice on the road. So one day going to town with the whole load in there, I was going up the hill, and I thought, well, I got to step on it to make, because it's pretty icy. Well, that was wrong. I stepped on it, and it swung around, and we tipped over in the ditch. Nobody got hurt, but back then you had to carry lunch money for doing lunch, and Larry lost his lunch money. We said, come on, get out of there. Well, I lost my lunch money. I can't find it. He's more concerned about finding that and getting out of the wrecked car. But unfortunately, nobody got hurt. I don't remember how we got to school, but tipped the car back up and we still used the car. back then they was made of heavy enough material that didn't hurt them. Bent it a little bit, but yeah. Then in school we took, I don't remember what all subjects I took, but I tried, but I wished I'd have tried harder, especially in spelling and history. Spelling made a big difference on my writing later on, I know. I took typing for, I think, about half a year, and I never did use it after that, but I was glad I did anyway. It's something different to do. And I went out for baseball, I think one year, but we were supposed to be home doing chores, so that didn't go over too good, because I supposed to be hauling the kids back home, and of course baseball practice was after school, so we had to figure out somewhere to get them home, then go to baseball practice. And then after that, we had, I don't remember a whole lot after that other than getting through school and graduating. We had different dances, sock dance, and different dances we went to. And when I got old enough to carry a gun and do some hunting and stuff, we liked to hunt. We had a big grove down there, and we also did have a big orchard, apples and grapes. And anyway, we'd go down the grove and hunt squirrels and rabbits and crows. And we liked, when pheasant season opened, we'd like to go hunting pheasants. We'd walk a couple miles, think nothing of it back then. And one day we was over by the airport hunting, and we seen a little fawn deer that was just standing there. And we thought, well, we'll just see how close we can get to it. Well, we kept talking to it and coaxing it, and we got right up to it, pretty close, then it started following us. So we forgot about hunting and just kept walking back for going home, and it followed us all the way home. So we ended up getting it in the barn in a stall, and was in there petting it and taking care of it. Finally, we had a chicken coop with a high fence around it, so we put him in there for a while. And people on the road would stop and see him and watch him for a while. But he got out a couple of times. He could jump over that tall fence. And one time he was out in the pasture a little ways, and we were talking to it, trying to coax it back. And here it started walking towards us, and the cars were stopping, watching. They couldn't believe it. Here it come up, clearing the yard with us. And so we caught it and put it back in the pen. Well, somebody turned us in to the game warden, because he said you can't have a tame deer without a license. So one day he showed up and picked it up and took it someplace for, and Dad, I know one time earlier, he had a little pigeon that he tamed. He also had a little coon he tamed himself. And that pigeon, he'd go outside in the morning and call it, and it'd come up light on his hand or his shoulder. And one day the salesman was in there talking, and that pigeon was up there messing around with him. And somehow it got down on the ground, and we backed out. The car ran over him. That was the end of our pigeon. But the coon, we had to get rid of it, because when you come home with the groceries, you open the car door, and he was the first one in there trying to get some bread or some food of some kind. I don't remember what we did with it. Maybe turned it loose in the wild, I suppose. I don't know. But other than that, we had a pretty good time. We played up in the haymow a lot. When the hay got mostly empty, we'd play basketball up there, sweep the floor good. And then we'd crawl on the ropes up there, do our exercise. And of course, we had bicycles on the farm. We run around with those and kind of made little ramps and jumped off like dumb kids would do. But nobody got hurt too bad. So worked out pretty good. But normally we had a lot of fun on the farm. Yeah, back on the farm, yeah, for any spending money, we helped some neighbors out, bale hay at different places. Quite a few people would call us for baling hay, and for walking the beans, pulling cockleburrs, and going through the corn, pulling weeds and cockleburrs. And we did that for 2 or 3 years, even that when we was in school during the summer. Why we'd do that for spending money. Of course, we had to do our own first. That was a little smaller pay there. That was for room and board. Then after I did graduate, my first job in town was Hood's Grocery. They just opened a new grocery store, and I helped stock the shelves and stuff before they opened up. And after they opened, I worked there for about a year, I think. Back then we worked from Monday morning early till Saturday night. We put in 6 days a week and after supper sometimes. So it was a good learning experience, but it was a lot of work too. On Mondays we had to get there by 5:30, 6 o'clock to unload the semis for the groceries. Then the rest of the day we'd be putting them away. Friday night we had to scrub the floor before we left, make sure it was nice and shiny for Saturday, because Saturday was always a real busy day for grocery stores back then. Most of the farmers come to town on Saturdays to get their groceries for the week. Other than that was the only real job I had for a while. Well, I was still working at Hood's yet when I met Barb. And there was a dance at VFW, I believe, that we went to. And she was there, and I asked her to dance. And we did a couple dances, got along good. Then I asked her if I could take her home. Well, she said, me and my girlfriend just around the corner, I'm going to walk home with her. So, I missed out. Anyway, that went on for quite a while. I never did anything about it, but I kept thinking about her. And later on, there was at another dance at the Plantation, which was the dance hall over by Whittemore. It was a wedding dance, because there was free dance. And she knew, she worked with the girl that got married, so, but I didn't know either one of them very good then. When I went to the dance, I happened to see her over there. So I started dancing with her and danced with her several times. And finally I asked her to take her home, and this time she accepted. First of all, she asked somebody else, do you know that Tom Buscher? Can I trust him? And so yeah, I got to take her home. Then after that, I found out where she lived, and she did like to see me again. So, but it took me all summer from the first time to the second time to get back with her. But then we started going steady for quite a while. But there was one hang-up. She was a Methodist and I was a Catholic, and the folks weren't really happy on that deal. So we talked and talked about that. And one night she said, well, she didn't know if she could change or not. And she got out of the car and went in the house and left, and I thought, I can't just leave it go like that. So I went up and knocked on the door and talked some more, and finally we agreed we'd try to work it out. And she said she'd try taking instructions, and she took instructions and got along real good, and she's happy she did, because it works out better if they're both the same religion and stuff. So when we got, I think about 20 years old, 21 maybe, one Christmas I popped the question to her, she came out to the farm where they still was living, and I had the diamond hid under her pillow on the couch. And she was sitting there and was talking, and I said, well, I think I got a Christmas present for you. So I pulled it out and asked her, and no problem. She said yes, so made me happy. Then, naturally, shortly after that, she had hurried to set a date for the wedding. I thought, well, this would get me by a year, but so we set a date. This was at Christmas time. We set a date for June 7th. We got married on June 7th. And back then, the weddings were in the morning in our church, anyway. So we got the wedding over with, and we left on the honeymoon that afternoon. So we went down to, stayed at Des Moines the first night, and then went to St. Louis, and went to a ball game, because we'd never seen a major league ball game. Like dummies, we parked out in the street, clothes hanging all over in the car, and when the ball game got rained out, so we got out early. And good thing, because they had the window broke out, was stealing the clothes out. Otherwise, the cop said you'd have been clear empty if it didn't come along real quick. But they left us enough clothes for the rest of the trip. We had to buy a few things, but quite an experience for people who had never been out of the state before. And we went through Arkansas, down through Louisiana, and we didn't realize about all the colored people that they were separated back then yet. So we didn't know enough. We'd drink out of the wrong fountain and get in the wrong bathrooms. We didn't know the difference. But down there, they informed us right quick, you're in the wrong spot. And we ended up in Galveston, Texas on our honeymoon, and had a good time, and come back and found an apartment to live in, and lived there until I was able to find a house we could afford to buy. And so we bought a house in we got married in 58, and I think we got the house bought that fall or next spring in 59. Oh, let's see. On the way back from a honeymoon, we stopped at Grandma Buscher, my grandma, and because she was pretty sick, she actually had cancer, and she lived about 50 miles from home. So we stopped there on the way back and talked to her for quite a while. Then we come on home. We stayed at the farm till we could find a place to live, and we did find an apartment up on the second or third floor in town here. And that was a little different apartment living after living in a big house, I know that. So we lived in an apartment and got used to that, and Barb was working at the bank at that time. She went to work, and I started working for the Buscher brothers implement store. Working there for, well, about the same hours I was putting in at my first job at Hood's, because back then everybody stayed open 1 or 2 nights a week, and we worked all the Saturdays. I started there setting machinery up, delivering machinery, and then I ended up selling parts for machinery, and then ended up at last selling machinery. So that was my main and only job I had in my whole life. I stayed at the same job the full time. And when I was, let's see, was in the apartment yet. I think Tom expecting. And Barb had to quit her job because she got pretty sick carrying him. So the folks had us come back out to the farm for a while so she could help take care of him. In the meantime, we did find a house. So after Tom was born, we moved into the house. Then from there, we had the rest of the kids in the big house. Well, Tom was the first one born in 58, was it? 59? Anyway, he was pretty spoiled to start with because we'd haul him around all over to show him people, and you know how it is on your first one. And I don't remember a whole lot about bringing him up because I was working all day and Barb had to take care of. So at night when I get home, I could play with him and do whatever. And on Sundays, that's about the only time I had off to do it. And we, bought toys for him. And later on, we had pets for some of the kids. I don't remember if Tom had a rabbit or not. Did you? So we had a pen out in the yard for raise some rabbits, just for the fun of it. And we had a little duck one time they tamed, and the duck would walk around with them. And then later Kirk come along, and about the same story there. We'd take them to different places. I know when they got a little older, took them to the zoo and to the lake for swimming, or they was a little young for fishing, but they could wade out in the water and stuff, and go on picnics. Then Craig was the next in line. He come, and of course he liked rabbits and the duck and all the pets we had at that time. I think then we might have started going out to the park for picnics. Sometimes on Sunday we'd go out there and take a skillet along and some eggs and stuff and cook our own breakfast and then walk on trails. Then we wanted a girl, so we had one more. Patty come along, and about the same thing. We just did that. We went different places. We traveled a fair amount and went to lakes. We did a lot of picnics, and because we thought we was through with the kids, having kids. And a few years later, all of a sudden John pops up. So that was our last one, and we still did some traveling with 5 of us in the car. So back then, sometimes one of them would lay up in the back, by the back window, looking out. There's always a fight who was going to sit by the windows. So we had to let 2 of them start, and then they had to change off after so many miles. And then they got big enough where they started, Tom found a job, and I know he worked at the paint store for a while. I don't know if that was his first job. Then he worked at the elevator, Cargill elevator, where he got caught in an auger and got his arm messed up a little bit. And Kirk worked at a restaurant, and then I think he worked at the Big Bear, a farm supply store. And Craig, I know, worked at a pizza place, because when he come home, he smelled like pizza. And Patty, later, she was going to school. I think she started out of school at Fort Dodge and ended up going to Emmitsburg. But in the meantime, she worked at the Fairway store in Emmitsburg for And John, when he was still in school, he took auto mechanics at the high school. And I think Kirk did too. They took manual training, woodworking over there. Then he ended up going to Emmitsburg College for a year. Then in the meantime, the kids started getting married off. Tom was first, and Kirk, and I think Craig was before Kirk, I believe. Shortly, not too long. But it seemed like once they started, about every year and a half, we had a wedding. But John was quite a while because he was quite a little younger. Then he finally got married, and we was all alone by ourselves, so we did some more traveling then. Went a lot longer places and stayed for sometimes a week. But then we could, because the nest was home, it was empty at home, so. Well, I always wanted, seeing all these people with kids and stuff, always wanted to know if I could have a kid myself, and especially the first kid was kind of pretty exciting and just being married and raising a family was a good feeling. Once the kids all got married, they decided they're going to have kids too, so they started out having grandkids. And first grandkids, that was pretty exciting to have. Good thing about the grandkids, you didn't have to take care of them all the time. You could send them home, but a lot of times they stayed, come over and stay for several days or nights or whatever. When the parents were gone, we'd take care of them. They went on vacation, we'd have to take care of them until they got back. But Tom had 5 grandkids for us, and Kirk had 2. They all stayed around there close until eventually Kirk moved to Minneapolis, and the rest of them was all close around here. And Craig ended up having 2 kids, and he was working at the gas station at the time, but he always liked to live on an acreage. So his kids got to do a lot of other things on the farm, what some of the others didn't get to do. And Patty, she ended up with 3 girls. And John ended up with 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. But we never dreamt we'd ever have that many grandkids. But it was fun. It was nice to see them all. Back then we'd get together quite often for a lot of times, Christmas and Easter naturally, and sometimes the 4th of July and Thanksgiving. Then the grandkids, they grew up. They started having kids, so. Well, Grandma was, first of all, she was a kid lover. She loved little kids. And Christmas was her favorite time of the year, so she wanted to make sure all the kids, the grandkids, was there for Christmas. And she had to make sure she bought each one a present every year. I said, eventually we're going to have to stop. We're going to have to put an age limit on. We're getting so many of them. Well, we're going to do it as long as we can. And she did. Yeah, we'd always get together. Well, we used to get together out at KC, all the Buschers, not just our family, all the Buschers. And then they kind of wild, they'd run all over. They had a stage, they'd run up the stage and jump off there. But it was fun. But then lately our family's getting about as big where we're going to have to find a place for more room for all the grandkids, but she loved all the grandkids, all the kids. And Christmas was her favorite time of the year for everything. Then we took a lot of trips together after we was home alone. I know actually Patty was a nanny out in New York. I never dreamt we'd be in New York, but we went out there to see her. And ended up going up to Niagara Falls and taking a tour on the way back. And went down to Florida. Well, I guess Barb was gone then. I went to Florida for one of Tom's kids' wedding down there. Never dreamt I'd be in Florida either. Well, while Barb was alive yet, we took a trip to Alaska, and that was one of our favorite times together. So we've seen a lot of beautiful country, and we spent a lot of time, just the two of us together, for quite a while. But we did like to travel. She liked to travel as much as I did. And we liked to go to a casino once in a while. A lot of times we use that for an excuse to take a trip, to go somewhere, just to get away. We'd be home maybe a week or two and thought, we got to think of some place to go. Because it gets pretty boring, the same old thing every day, so. And I'm glad we did now. I wish we'd even went more. Because it wasn't long after that, she started getting sick and we couldn't go. She had a problem, was down and see her brother down in Missouri one day, and she started passing some blood. So she got scared, which I don't blame her. So we had to cut our vacation short and come home and get to the doctor and see what was wrong. If she had kidney cancer. So they removed the kidney, and they said they got it all, and she said, she's the luckiest person in the world. Well, evidently they got it all from the kidney, but it was gone someplace else before. And a few months later, she's got cancer all over again, and it ended up getting the best of her. But actually, she still had her last Christmas in the hospital, and she died shortly after Christmas. So she had a very good life, both of us did, but I wish she was still here to be with me. But other than that, I wouldn't change any of it for anything. It's been good. Yeah, after Barb died, it got to be lonely around here. I know that. I had to do my own cooking, my own washing, my own cleaning. So I had to find something to do to get out and about. I had to force myself to go out sometimes just to get away. So I volunteered different places to help people. I helped when they built the AA building in town. I helped down there till it was pretty well done. I kind of enjoyed that because it got me away for the day and get my mind off of things. And I volunteered at the food pantry to pick up food and deliver. I went to Clear Lake, took a trailer over to Clear Lake, and the Iowa Food Bank from Des Moines hauled food up there and unloaded, and picked it up there and brought it back to Algona and helped unload it. Then I still haul milk once a week from the Fairway store to pick it up there and haul it to the food pantry every week. And I got into woodworking. I did woodworking for quite a while, but after Barb passed away, I did more of it just to occupy my time. And I built several things for church. In the sanctuary, I built a big table with chairs or drawers and stuff in it where they put their stuff and some of their investments where they get dressed and so on. And I made a lot of the frames for the poster boards. I built them for each entrance of the church. And a few other things I did for them. And I still do a lot of woodworking as much as I can. I built a good share of the grandkids. I built something for them. either bookshelves or a little stand or magazine rack or something. I know my own kids, I built a table out of oak, a folding table you fold up and carry, which I did that. My barber's still alive. I started. Did one each Christmas for him until I got them all done. And no, that's what I do to keep busy. I still do volunteering when I can. I go around when the kids are working and see him. I helped Tom a little bit when he was remodeling. And I used to help Craig once when they go on vacation. I'd help at the station while they're gone. But when I retired from the shop, I pretty well quit there because they went all to computers. I'm not involved in computers, so I just go down and check on him, see how he's coming. No, as a father, I enjoyed my life from day one after I got married and started raising kids. There was work to it. There was times you didn't know if it was ever going to get through the days, but it was worth it. It seemed like whenever there was a problem and it worked out, everything went better after that. And I got along with the kids as good as I could. Tried to teach them the right things to do and help them. They all had to do some work at home, so none of them was dumb when they went to get a job. They could do about anything they wanted to. And myself, I'm glad I had all the kids I did. And I'm glad I went through some of the troubled times and the good times. And I think I had more good times than troubled times, but during the troubled times, you just gotta make your mind up. Things will work out. And the biggest thing is just pray for it, and it seems like it'll work out for you. You gotta have faith in whatever you're doing. And just make your mind up that it can be done and you can do it. After you worry about it for so long time and go ahead and do it, things work out and you thought, well, what was I worried about? But everything worked out fine. So all in all, I'd say I had a very good life, happy life, had a very good wife and good kids. And if I had anything to advice for the kids nowadays, the rest of my family, is just to do as good as you can and don't be afraid of work. Go ahead and work to make yourself a living. And if you've run into any problems at all, just think about it over and pray about it. That's the main thing. Pray about it and it will work out for you. So you could have a good life just like I did.